Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom LeNoble. It's great to be with you again. Today, I have a great guest for you. Carlos Nouche is with me today. He's an entrepreneurial CEO and an executive coach. And we coaches like to stick together, so this is going to be great. Carlos, welcome to the show.
A sincere pleasure to be here, Tom. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I want to know something, and so do my guests. Please tell us about what you're working on and also what brought the idea to you to start your company.
What am I working on professionally? Maybe like a
Yeah,
podcast?
yes, or whatever you're working on. We want to know.
So there's a number of things I'm working on. So that's kind of what makes life kind of interesting. I feel like I dabble in different areas. One of the items I used to co-host a podcast, and I stopped that last year. I was thinking I'm just going to focus on the business. And Tom, I missed it. So one of the things I started this year and I've been working on a lot is the 1% Edge podcast, which was a way of getting amazing guests like yourself to come on and talk about how they're getting 1% better and learning different things in life, whether it be, specific items within B2B sales and go to market or just life in general so that we can all learn from it. And that's one of the things I'm working on that I really love.
Wonderful. I want to know when you started back doing the podcast, the 1%, when was the moment that you went, yes, this is it. I knew I needed to do this. This is definitely the path I want to be on.
I can't tell you, I won't point back to the exact moment, but, I started it, I started doing the interviews, and Tom, it's really how I felt from the process. As you know, these podcasts take a lot of work. So, inside, I felt good about it. I mean, one of my thoughts were, even if no one's listening to this thing, if I was committed, I'm going to do it for at least a year, 52 episodes. I'm going to get the best education ever because I'm going to get people like yourself to come on, share their stories, share their experiences, and I'm going to learn from it. So my thought, starting it out, I knew I was in the right places. I found myself telling the story of others. Hey, I just had Tom on and we were just talking about this, and this is happening in the AI space. And I just had this other individual on and I learned it. And you could just hear the excitement in my voice and how happy and excited I was about it. So I guess that's the moment that I felt like, hey, I'm on the right track.
I love it. I want to go back now for a few minutes. We all have a backstory of how we got where we are today. And let's take it back and tell us a little bit about that backstory because I happen to know, Carlos, you've had a very wonderfully interesting and successful past. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you. My past, like many others, you start out, you're working hard. The one way I would describe it was like always moving forward. So look, I can't tell you that I went to work for those, skyrocketing starships and it worked great. I always felt I went to work for the number 2, the number 3 player, that we're almost there. And, in hindsight, I loved it because it made me work that much harder to have success. So I spent almost 20 years. Well, I don't know how far back you want to go, Tom. So, but I mean,
Whatever you want.
So part of my story is, I graduated from college. I moved from Florida to Chicago. I got married and I got my first job out of college, all within 30 days. I don't recommend it, but it was a good way, shotgun start to my life. And soon after, the company I was at was going under. My wife at the time was, she was having struggles at work. So you were faced with challenges like we all are. And, I think that's kind of like the story of my life. There's always been like, hey, we're going this direction. Challenges show up, obstacles show up. Hey, you just got to keep moving forward and overcome them. That job led me to meet some folks that were in the software space. And I spent almost 20 years in the technology side. I was a worldwide VP of sales and service at Amdocs. I got to travel the world. I had a great team and I loved it. I also found out that, you hit the certain pinnacle of life and you're like, this is it, I made it. I got the greatest admin in the world. I have 250 people working for me worldwide, and I'm not happy. So, I kind of, did a little inventory of my life, and I go, you know what? I've ridden this journey for as long as I could. It's time to make a change. The scary part was, especially for me, Tom, is I didn't know what that change was. So I was just going to take some time off. And I quickly found that me taking time off you would find me at Starbucks serving coffee, because I just can't just like sit at home. So I could feel the anxiety kicking in. And a good friend of mine told me, hey, remember Scott Anschutz? He started this company called Visualize. He's doing the sales training and coaching stuff. You love that stuff. You love helping people. Why don't you connect with him? And I did. And honestly, Tom, I was going to do it for 6 months to a year. And then I felt I was going to go back to being a VP somewhere. 17 years later today, I work with all sorts of companies around the globe, helping them, change those conversations, those go-to-market conversations, so that, we could better understand our customers, and not only why they buy, but what outcomes you're looking to achieve. Because, like you've worked also on the customer success and service side. Hey, we got to fulfill those promises that we told them. And when we do, we have raving fans. So that's an aspect of my life. Along the journey, I invested in a franchise business. I'm almost at 13 years. My partner called me the other day, and we have a record quarter. And I love that. Somebody like, great success. I go, those first 10 years was like running a charity. I can't tell you how many times I got calls in the middle of it going, we're this short to payroll. We need to make up the difference. Oh, God, write a check. But, we persevered. And I think that's part of the story. Just like, obstacles are going to come. Keep moving forward. Find your way around them. And when you have to make hard decisions, make them and keep moving forward. That gives you a little taste of my career.
Yeah, it's great. You know how I feel about risk and resilience, and you're a model for it. As I always say, just keep getting up. And the other thing you said that I love is this idea that I was in service, you were in sales, and I think you'll agree with me. What I found is those go hand in hand. Without one or the other, you're missing a component of having a successful customer experience. So I love this idea. I want to know next.
100%.
Yes, I want to know next. And I love this question for my guests, in that all of us have some early role models in life, someone we look back to that really influenced where we are today. Who was that for you in your early Carlos life?
Tom, I've been fortunate, I think, to have a lot of different people that have come in and out of my life that have really made an impact, that spent a little extra time. And it just so happens that I talked to one of them yesterday. Brett Kane is an individual that I was working for, a software company, Clarify, in Chicago. And I was thinking about switching roles. And it was to be on Brett's team, which was building out our channel partners. And he came to town, and he had he's one of many that had an influence in my life, and just gave me some guidance. And if I could tell you a little story, one of them was, after our first year, I was like that rooster in his office with his tail feathers flying. We blew out our numbers. I'm awesome. I built this whole new team. Woo! And he looked at me and he goes, that was great. How about this next year you try to become the actual manager? And it was my first year in management. And what he, was trying to tell me was, and he did, was, Carlos, you did all this work this year through your team. I need them to be the next Carloses, and I need you to be the new Carlos, the manager, which is different skills. And man, on one hand, it was like he punched me in the nose. And on the other, here I am all these years later, so grateful for him doing so, because I reassessed, sat down with my team, and we doubled the next year. It was even better.
So tell me this. In this journey on your podcast, the 1%, I want to know, has there been a time you doubted your vision?
Oh, Tom, I'm full of doubt sometimes. I question things all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right investment? And, I just try to take a deep breath and reassess. Hey, if I get, this much out of it, whatever that line is, it's worth it. And then put those doubts aside and keep moving forward. And I know I make it sound easy. I struggle with it tremendously sometimes. And I've gotten better as I've gotten older at it. But you got to reassess, why are you really doing this, or why are you going through this, or why is this obstacle so important for you to overcome? And those doubts come in, and I found a way to kind of overcome them when I know, hey, even if I just achieve this, it's worth it. This is the right decision for you. Is that the answer you're looking for, or the area you're looking for?
Yes, it's perfect. I want to know now, was there part of the story in the very beginning where something Carlos did that others really ever knew about or never saw? Was there something that happened on the journey that, was, yours, but not really exposed to the world, that was important and a big milestone on this journey?
I got to think a little, Tom. You got me thinking this morning. Look, I'm sure there is. The only one that comes to mind, I don't even know if this is a good example, but there was a time where the leadership team at the place I was at, I think I was a director at the time, asked me to be part of this team to revamp our comp system, our compensation. And, some people would think, well, obviously you're part of the compensation, so you were probably selfish and, did things in there to make yourself right. But that's not who I am. And I don't know if people realize that. I wanted to do what was right for the company and ultimately drive our success. And I wanted to do what was right for the employees. And I really took that seriously. I took that to heart. It's what I hope our politicians do at times, is like really do it as a service, not to serve themselves. But that's a whole other story. And, but I don't know, there was a time where, I don't think people realize how hard I worked on that project to really come up with an outcome that was helping the company, but helping our team overall. And that was an example.
Yes, yes, yes. If somebody was watching you back then and saw you today, what would surprise them the most about Carlos today?
It depends on the back then. Another person that was a mentor in my life, he says, Carlos, you're a different person, sometimes in front of the customer than you are behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, you're joking, you're downplaying stuff. You get in front of the customers as like the stage lights go on, and you're this amazing presenter, comedian, whatever you want to call it. And I go, well, that's what the job requires. It's like, I sometimes the way I got over my anxiety, by the way, of speaking in front of others was, hey, I'm going to act like I'm a great speaker. So I think today some people see like, hey, you're on podcasts. I mean, I've done events with hundreds of people in the audience. You must love to get on that main stage. I go, oh, if you only knew. Even way back early in my career, I was part of our student government, and they asked me to speak at events. With my broken English at times, I was terrified. And I just found a way to take that nervous energy and turn it into something. And I still look for that nervous energy to today when I go do an event.
Yes, I love this idea of act as if. It's something I've used many times, and I actually coach people on it because I believe we draw things to us by stepping into them even before we're ready. So what I want to know next is, what have you learned along this journey about trust?
Mm. It's an interesting concept. So I had this conversation with my better half, I don't know, 6 months ago. What have I learned about trust? And it was about trusting others. And you know how it is that sometimes you trust others and you get burnt at times, and it really sours you. And you have a decision to make. Do you sour out and trust less, or do you trust more? And in my conversation with her, this is a few months ago, I said, you know what? I think I'm willing to trust others and get burnt than I am to not trust others at all and become a doubter of humanity and those around me. I'm hopeful that people want to do the right thing. I'm hopeful that people want to be a person of their word and think of the greater good, not just, bamboozle you to win something. And that's also been my style in sales.
Really good. I love this. Yeah, I know I talked to a few people on this about this trust idea, and one person said, I trust, but I verify. And it made me start to think about that of how I come from a place of trust as well. But I try and do enough research, but I don't forget my intuition. I don't forget that first instinct that I have about what's going on and keep my mind on it. But I still try and go from trust. I find that the best. So tell us, you've managed people over your career. Tell us about your leadership style. What have you learned about leadership?
Well, one big lesson I learned early on is that people are motivated for their own reasons. And I know that sounds so simplistic, but for as leaders start out, I think they assume, or their perception is themselves as an employee. So, hey, obviously others want what I want, whether it's your money driven or promotion driven or whatever. And with Brett Gaines' guidance, I sat down with each one on my team and I kind of spoke to them about what they really want. What do they want, not only for the year, but the next 3 to 5 years to come. And so leadership style is like, hey, you really got to try to understand the people around you. You want them for a certain role, and you can make that clear. What do they want? And can you merge the two together? And there's things you have flexibility. Like I had someone on my team because, Carlos, I know you told me never complain about travel because that's part of our jobs, but I have a newborn and a 2-year-old at home. And if I could have a little more control over my travel, it would make my family life a lot better. And then I had other folks on the team that goes, hey, Carlos, I got, my kids are grown. I'm willing to take on more travel if it helps our overall team. Because that's another thing. I got them talking to each other on how we can help each other as a team be better. So my leadership style is one of trying to, get the most out of the team that we have and work together as a team. It's not that, hey, I'm your boss, do this. That doesn't work for me. So it's not a style that I try to push on others, but there is a direction and there is an expectation. Does everybody know it? How can we work together to achieve it?
Listen up, viewers. There's some leadership wisdom going on here today. Thank you, Carlos. Tell me, when the stakes are high, how do you make decisions?
When stakes are high, that means pressure is usually high. My tendency is usually, quickly determine a direction and be like a bull in a china cabinet and blow through it and let's go. What I've learned over the years is, hey, that's not necessarily wrong, but if you're leading a team, you got to bring them along with you. So when tensions are high, I think it's really important to communicate. Why is this important? What are we trying to do? What's expected of us? Have a clear direction. I think sometimes as leaders, we assume that. And we assume our team knows that it's important. And those assumptions get us in trouble because now we're pushing because we feel the stress, these high tension, and the team doesn't understand why. And why, everything's urgent with you, right? So make sure you're communicating to the team of what the goals are. What are we trying to accomplish? Is everybody on board with it? Does everybody even understand it? Sometimes team might go, well, hey, I get where the company wants to go. That's not where I want to go. Hey, that's great. Maybe you need to be in a different team. And that might sound cold, but hey, in sports, not everybody plays well together. Not everybody's going to be a great football player when they love baseball, right? Hey, the bass player is not going to be a great drummer. So, hey, if you're looking to, have a team, let's communicate on what we're trying to do together. What's everyone's role within it early on? And I think it's that planning early on that we miss. It's the same thing, even if you just think about customers and opportunities. Do we really understand them early on so that we can not only, go through a sales campaign with them and help them buy, but actually deliver on those promises? Because you said it earlier, hey, the customer success and service side goes hand in hand with sales. Everybody is out there trying to help someone be hugely successful with whatever our products and services are. And if we're not clear about that to start with, then I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, more leadership wisdom here, Carlos. So tell me this. How do you make the decision when to pivot or push through?
That's a tough one. Um, I'm stubborn. I'm a kid of two immigrants. So when things get bad, my tendency is just to suck it up and keep going forward and buckle up. And sometimes I can honestly say that was a mistake. I didn't spend enough time to step back from the situation and go, is this really right for me? And I almost felt selfish, like, well, why would you, world would you give up? Now, so I don't know. My going back to your question, I'm going to give you my advice, and then I'm going to give you how I am. So my advice is, hey, when you face in a situation like that where you don't know if you should push through or step back, do a little inventory. Is this really what you want to do? Is this really what you want? Because sometimes me, for example, push through something to get to the other side to just realize, it wasn't what I wanted anyway, but I proved to myself I could do it. And I don't know, Tom, I struggle with this, especially when I talk to younger folks, because I think sometimes younger folks, they try something. Oh, this is hard. This is difficult. I'm going to step back and I'm going to go try something else. And I go, sooner or later, you got to keep going. You got to prove to yourself that you can get through something, and you can always step back later. But, you got to make, it's almost like, I know it's a terrible question. On one hand, it's like you can't always keep moving forward on everything. And on the other hand, you can't always give up on everything.
Yes. Yes, it's a balance. I hear that. Yeah. Tell me this, Carlos. What impact have you made that you're most proud of? And I'm interested in hearing that about a personal impact, not a professional one.
Impact. I don't know, Tom. I think you said personal. So, for the last 17 years, I've talked to people around the world and just trying to help them work through, whether it's marketing, sales, pre-sales, customer success. All right. How do we help the customer and work through it? And going back to your question, the part that I enjoy the most is when I get the call, whether it be a week later, a month later, sometimes even years later. Carlos, man, I took your comments to heart. It really helped change my life. It became part of my DNA. It's part of the way I engage with customers these days. Those, personally, that's awesome. I go, my God, I impacted someone's life positively. And, we've had this conversation about philanthropists. And if I could do more of that, I go, if I could just live off that feeling alone, man, I'd be the richest guy in the world.
Yes, yes, yes. So tell me this, what values are non-negotiable?
Well, trust is one of them. We talked about that earlier. I'm more than willing to trust others. I'm also not very good when that trust is broken. And I have a really hard time, repairing that. Because if you break it once, then, what's to stop you from ever, doing that again? I don't know. I guess I got to give these values a word. Trust would be one of them. I don't know how you call it, but, just put, the way you treat others. That's another thing that I look for in others that I engage with or I work with. How do they treat other people? And do they, value them? Do they respect them no matter their title? I used to do this thing at the end of the day, Tom, at the end of my workshops was we get paid an awful lot of money to do what we do. And part of the reason is it's hard. And usually when I would do an event like this, we would be at a hotel and there would be servers cleaning up and doing stuff. And I would tell them, my dad, for the majority of his life, was a server. I mean, he was a waiter, it was for most of his life. He served others at the restaurant. And sometimes, we downplay those roles. We don't respect those roles. And there's a reason we make more money than some people in those roles. It's because we have to solve really complex stuff. But that doesn't change the fact that we got to treat them with the same respect that we would treat the CEO of a company that we work with.
I love this for a bunch of reasons. One, um, I wouldn't be where I am today except for the years that I spent as a server. I learned more about people in that job. And I love this idea of remembering we're all human, we're all equal, we're doing the best we can. My favorite thing, whether it's at a car dealership, a hotel, wherever I'm at, is I see the person that's doing housekeeping and I walk up and thank them because everybody's doing the best they can and doing what they need to do to take care of themselves and their families. Some of us are in different places in life and should never, ever forget where we came from and be humble with people. I love this. So tell me, have you ever said no to growth that wasn't aligned with your values?
Yeah. I mean, there was I got into, over these 17 years, like many of us, opportunities come up. And there was an opportunity to go work for a bigger, a multi-billion-dollar organization in a VP role, which, as my buddy who recommended me for the job says, Carlos, this would be a big role for you. This would be a great career move for you. And I go, oh, all right. And I was interviewing, and as I was interviewing, I kind of realized the person that they want and the things they want that person to do is not me. And I don't know, call me cocky, but I was bold enough to kind of say, hey, if this is the role and these are the expectations, those don't align to who I am. What's funny is, like, a month later, I got a call. As Carlos, you came in second place. Second place? I thought I was out.
That's great. That's great. I think it's important that we keep in mind when things don't fit, when there's something about them that we're setting ourselves up for something that either we won't be successful or, more importantly, that we're just not going to be happy, that we're not going to enjoy it, we're not going to be able to give it our all. Carlos, tell me, what do you think your boldest vision is for your business for the next 5 years?
Boldest vision. So I don't know if it's bold, but Tom, I, I'm dabbling in a couple of different businesses, and dabbling is not the right word for it because I work hard at it. But when I look across at what I do, what I really like to do is continue doing the parts that I really enjoy, like helping others, advising others at different companies, and do more of those things that feed my soul and feed my passion for things. And I hope that becomes a bigger part of my time and what I'm doing, and I can pull back on some of these other things. And by pulling back, I also mean, like, hey, I can give those opportunities to other people on my team. So, for example, I'm currently competing in a couple of big projects, and part of me is like, oh man, could suck me back into spinning around the globe doing these events. I go, no, it doesn't. I could work on this project, I can manage this project, but I have a whole team behind me that can go deliver this. It doesn't have to be me. And I feel so much calmer, more empowered in saying that I'm going to pay others to do this work because I feel more, my time's better served doing this work. And my goal is, hopefully in the next 5 years, you see more of that transition.
Wonderful. When things get tough, what keeps you inspired?
I come from a very blue collar home. My parents immigrated here, and I give them all the credit that they really installed this hard work ethic. So when things get tough, I just kind of look back to my parents like, oh my God, this is nothing compared to what they went through. When my dad left Spain in 1954 to go to this great, shiny new city that was full of work called Havana, I didn't realize this. I thought he just hopped on a plane and went over. He jumped on a boat, a ship, and it took him 3 weeks to get there. And why I tell you that, it's like when things get tough for me, I go, dude, this is nothing, just work through it, figure out a way around it. Don't let that anxiety and all that other stuff take over. Realize where that comes from in your brain. I've done some, I've talked to other folks like yourself about, hey, realize what's happening to you physically, right? And, be cognitive enough to kind of think through it and kind of work your way through it. But I'm going back to your core of your question, Tom. I think back to my parents and their
Yeah,
hard work ethic, and I just keep moving forward.
I love this. I came from some humble beginnings as well, and my dad worked for the same construction company for 60 years.
Wow.
And my mother was a lunch lady in the local school for 28 years, back when they really served lunch, not what happens today. And I remember how dedicated they were to ensuring that my brother and I had a life better than them. And I'm with you. When things get tough, I reflect back on what they went through and puts me right back on track. So, I would like to know, what are you most hopeful for in the world today?
So hope is a word that I've been using a lot, especially at the beginning of the year. And I'm hopeful that people can not get so entrenched in their views and find a way to just talk and communicate, because we all have some common ground.
Yes, I agree with you. A little unity would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there could be 10 things, 9 of them, Tom, you and I might see differently. Can we find the one thing that we do
Yes.
agree on? Can we work together on promoting that one?
Yes, if nothing else, we all want to laugh, we all want to love. There's things that we always will have in common as humans. So tell me this, Carlos, if your younger self were to watch this podcast, what would you tell him?
You're gonna be all right. I think there's a lot of times in my life that I sat there, face in my hands, going, "Oh, what have I gotten myself into? How am I going to get myself out of this? This mountain's too big to climb." And every time, some way, somehow, I've made it through. So if I could go back in time and goes, I think you used the word evidence. Look at the evidence of your career and what you've done. Now, if I could tell that to my younger self, I think that would help me get rid of a lot of nights of anxiety.
You know my feelings about evidence. I think I need to start writing about that more. So, um, Carlos, I have one final question for you. There are people watching this podcast that will be starting either out on their journey or they'll be considering being a leader or starting a business. What advice would you give somebody starting out?
I guess, when I talk to younger folks starting out, I mean, today, I think there's a lot of, on one hand, some people feel like there's not as much opportunity. Like, oh, you got tons of opportunity. You know, um, take a moment to take inventory of what you want and what you don't like, and then go for it. You can't, it's kind of like the podcast. And Tom, you and I talked about it. I took months, like I wanted it to be right and I wanted it to be perfect and I wanted it to be high. And someone told me, you'll never get there if you don't start. And when you start, it might be crappy. You might have horrible in your first 20 episodes, but 21 is going to get a little better. And then it'll get better from there. So if I had to talk to younger folks, is yes, take inventory, assess, what do you like, what don't you like? But sooner or later, you got to dip your toe in the water. It's like getting
Yeah.
to the lake, jump in. It'll feel cold at first. It'll be a little uncomfortable at first. And then you get used to it. And you can make better decisions. You can say you did it. And then you can move on to the next thing. Early on in my career, I felt like every 18 months I switched roles or I got promoted or I went to a different team. And I didn't let any of those roles along the way define me. In college, I cleaned offices for a semester. That doesn't mean that I was going to be an office cleaner the rest of my life. In fact, I remember doing it and thinking to myself, someday I'll be sitting in the office, not out here cleaning the
Yes.
hallway.
Yes. Great wisdom today. Um, Carlos, thank you so much for being here today. Carlos Nouche, the 1% Edge podcast, executive coach, sales and marketing executive. So much wisdom you shared with my viewers today, and I'm so grateful. Tell us, where can we find you? Tell us what we need to know about how to find Carlos Nouche.
Well, I look, the easiest place is probably either LinkedIn, because there's not a lot of Noches out there. That's Nouche. CarlosNouche.com is my personal website, and it has links to my podcast and some of the different things that I do in my career. Those would be
One.
my two places that I would advise people to reach out. And if you want to connect and have a conversation, I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you for being here today, Carlos.
Thank you for having me, Tom. It was a pleasure.
Yes. And to my viewers, this has been Opening Pathways with Tom LeNoble, and I'll see you next time.